Hi, this is Michael, and I'm joining you from the Labyrinth at First Christian Church in Loveland, Colorado. These are the final days of the season of Lent, right before Holy Week begins, and it's been a surreal time for us as most of the nation is in isolation to curb the spread of the COVID-19 virus. This labyrinth, the labyrinth tradition, comes from the ancient Christian tradition of making a pilgrimage or a journey to the holy city of Jerusalem. And for those who couldn't afford the expense or were otherwise unable to do so, the labyrinth evolved as kind of a substitute during the Middle Ages. You could physically walk the path and imagine Jesus as a companion on the way. This particular labyrinth was the project of an Eagle Scout candidate who designed and constructed it for use by the whole community. And if you're looking for a Lenten discipline that will allow you to practice and to get some outdoor time while you're remaining safely isolated, this is a great opportunity. And we invite you to be our guest. Also on this site, and you can see it here just to my left, is the little lending library. We've the children of the church put it together and invite the community to participate if you're looking for something to read. So last week we began examining the experience of Jesus' temptation in the wilderness, and immediately following his baptism in the Jordan River. As we noted at that time, the Gospels of Matthew and Luke have a little more detail in the story, while Mark barely mentions it, and John none at all. So after having tempted Jesus with the basic necessity of food, we pick up the story with two more temptations. Here's a scripture account. And this is from Luke's Gospel. It says, the devil led him to a high place and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world. And he said to him, I will give you all their authority and its splendor. It has been given to me, and I can give it to anyone I want to. If you worship me, it will all be yours. Jesus answered, it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. The devil led him to Jerusalem and had him stand on the highest point of the temple. If you are the Son of God, he said, throw yourself down from here, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you carefully. They will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. The devil knows his scripture well. This comes from the book of Deuteronomy. Jesus answered, it is said, do not put the Lord your God to the test. When the devil had finished all his tempting, he left him until an opportune time. As we know with so much of the Bible, interpretations of this passage have varied over the centuries. Some have believed the story is a literal narrative, that actually describes events that actually happened. Others have understood and have taught that it was more like a parable, a story such as those that Jesus used to illustrate his teachings throughout the Gospels. I like to think of it like a vision quest, similar to what we see in Native American and other traditions. As with them, Jesus deprives himself of basic needs in order to bring himself in an experience closer to God. So whether Satan in the story is an actual supernatural being or a vision, both the hunger Jesus feels and the temptations he is presented are very real. In his humanity, Jesus identifies with our suffering and shows us a path through our own trials, like the one we're in right now with the global pandemic. I'm here alone at our church building during a time when normally we would be sharing a lunch and a Lenten devotion. For the safety of our congregation and our guests, we decided weeks ago to cancel all of our gathered activities and even the Sunday worship services. As much as we value our worship and our fellowship and hold the Lord's Day in high importance, it's just not worth risking people's lives. It's been deeply troubling to me to read about other churches throughout the country who have defied this reasoning and continued their gatherings. This morning I read that a pastor had even been arrested for violating an order against convening together in groups. There have been similar cases where church members contracted the virus after attending worship in this kind of defiance. I haven't heard of any resulting deaths yet, and I genuinely pray there won't be. But I do believe that my colleagues in ministry in these situations have completely missed the lesson from Jesus' temptation. In the story, Satan speaks to Jesus almost like a child. We might remember from our own childhood days that taunting, "I double dog dare you to jump off this church roof." But it's not pride or false challenge to courage that is presented. The dare is put out there as a test of faith. The devil essentially says, if you're really who you say, God will protect you from being hurt. Sadly, these shepherds have led their flock astray with a similar dare. They've said, this is a test. If you really have faith in God, you'll come to worship and you will be protected from the infection of the virus. No doubt some of them will also tell church members who become ill that it was because of their insufficient faith. The temptation for Jesus is in a spectacular fashion to jump off a cliff. We may not be hearing such call to spectacle, but some have taken a similar approach to the defying the advice of health professionals. They think they're exhibiting faith in God when they needlessly and carelessly expose themselves and others to a disease they may not even know they carry. They mistakenly believe that it's in God, only in God's hands, and that their infection or lack of infection is the will of God. I don't believe either God or Satan inflicted this pandemic on us, but both operate in the middle of it. Evil is recognizable. It's recognizable in the scam artists who are hawking false hope in supposed cures. It's in those who are fraudulently offering fake stimulus checks and government aid and yes, even in the temptation to endanger public health by non-compliance with distancing orders, even through false tests of faith. Jesus points out to Satan and to us that we should not put God to the test, that our contrived tests are in league with Satan and not with him. God's operation in this time is to send hope to all the hopeless. It's to encourage those who risk illness in the service of others. It's to offer wisdom of ancient healing to those seeking a path to treatment or to prevention. This Sunday is Palm Sunday, the beginning of Holy Week. And as Christians, we'll observe those painful events of Jesus' betrayal, humiliation, suffering, and death. And we will recall the extent to which he was willing to surrender even his own life in solidarity with our human condition. And let's face it, the feeling may be especially potent as the reality of death looms even closer than usual. But let's take this time to remember that even in the loneliness of our isolation, we have been told and we know that we are never alone. May God's blessings continue to be with you this week and always.